I had been working at a mid-sized tech company in Austin for 5 years, quietly grinding away as a software engineer. My work was the kind no one really saw, debugging gnarly systems, optimizing internal tools, and saving projects that were teetering on the edge of disaster. I prided myself on being reliable, thorough, and, most importantly, professional. I thought that kind of diligence was enough to stand out. I was wrong. Then Melanie joined our team. From the moment she walked in, she had this aura of overconfidence that was impossible to ignore. Not the charming kind either, the kind that screamed, "The world owes me everything, and you all are just in the way." She spent the first week casually mentioning her connections. Sometimes it was her cousin in corporate, other times it was vague hints that she had some sort of personal relationship with the VP. Most of the office rolled their eyes, but Melanie seemed to thrive on the reactions she got. At first, I tried to be polite. "Nice to meet you," I said, shaking her hand, while inwardly preparing myself for a year of enduring subtle self-promotion. It didn't take long for her to make it personal. Within a month, she was casually implying that my work, while good, wouldn't matter as much as who I knew. It came to a head when the company announced a promotion for a senior developer position. My heart sank a little. This role was exactly what I'd been working toward. 5 years of late nights, debugging nightmares, and quietly delivering results all pointed in this direction. I thought I had a strong chance until Melanie started planting her little seeds. One morning by the coffee machine, she cornered me with that infuriating grin. "You know," she said, swirling her oat milk latte, "I think I'd be perfect for that promotion. Connections matter, you know? Everyone knows I'm close with VP Daniels." I forced a polite laugh. "Yeah, sure, connections are important," I replied. "Let's see what happens." Her smile widened like she'd already won. She skipped away, and I watched her, annoyed but strangely amused. This wasn't the first time someone tried to use charm and alleged connections to leap ahead, and I knew it wouldn't be the last. But this time, I decided I wasn't going to play defense. I would wait, observe, and play my cards quietly. Little did I know, the next few weeks would test not just my patience, but my entire approach to office politics, and the sweet satisfaction of quiet revenge would be far more satisfying than I imagined. Once Melanie set her sights on the promotion, she became relentless. At first, it was little things: innocuous comments, overly helpful suggestions, subtle jabs disguised as advice. One morning, she wandered over to my desk while I was knee-deep in debugging a particularly nasty API issue. "Oh, you're still working on that?" she asked, smiling as if she were my mentor. "I actually tweaked a few things in the module you're stuck on. No big deal, just thought I'd help." I looked at her incredulously. "Tweaked how?" She waved her hand dismissively. "Nothing major, just, made it cleaner. I mean, I wouldn't want you to struggle." I stared at my code. The changes she made weren't harmful, but they subtly undermined my ownership. My manager wandered by at that moment, nodding politely. I forced a smile, feeling my cheeks heat up. The humiliation stung, not because she had done anything catastrophic, but because everyone else saw the interaction, and somehow in Melanie's world, I was the one who couldn't handle it. And she didn't stop there. During meetings, she'd sprinkle comments like seasoning. "I noticed John had some trouble with the database schema, so I helped out." Or, "I think John might have overlooked this minor optimization, but no worries, I took care of it." Every time, my blood boiled. I wanted to confront her, to call out the lies, but I remembered a piece of advice my father gave me years ago. Never fight the fire with fire. Let the fire burn itself out while you plan. So I did exactly that. I started documenting everything: her helpful edits, her brags about connections, even the subtle undermining in meetings. Every email, every Slack message, every little comment went into a private folder. I wasn't just preparing for a confrontation, I was building a case. The humiliation peaked during a team-wide demo. I had spent weeks polishing a feature that improved our system's efficiency by 40%. I'd coded, tested, and debugged every line. Melanie, of course, claimed partial credit in the most casual way possible. "I just helped optimize some of the endpoints John worked on," she said during the presentation, flashing her usual knowing smile. Everyone nodded, and for a moment I felt like shrinking into my chair. My hard work suddenly reframed as a minor collaborative effort. I wanted to explode, but instead I stayed calm, silently vowing that the truth would come out, but on my terms. That night, I re-examined my documentation, organized it meticulously, and even prepared a few slides and charts showing exactly how I improved the system. If Melanie wanted to play the connections game, I would play the proof game. And when the time came, the scales would tip in my favor. Little did she know, every smug smile, every hint about her VP buddy was just adding fuel to a fire I intended to control. The announcement for the senior developer position came down like a spotlight. Everyone was on edge, but no one more than Melanie. She practically floated into the office the next day, exuding that over-the-top confidence, the kind that makes everyone else feel like they're in slow motion while she's in fast forward. She cornered me again by the coffee machine, latte in hand and grin fully operational. "So," she said, leaning in conspiratorially, "I hear the interviews start tomorrow. Exciting, right? You know, it's really all about who the higher-ups like. Technical stuff is secondary." I forced a polite smile. "I'll see how it goes. I like to focus on the work itself." She laughed, a little too sharp, a little too knowing. "Oh, I love that about you, but we both know charm counts for something." I nodded, hiding my irritation. Charm was great for her, but it wouldn't carry her through technical questions. I knew that. I also knew that Melanie thrived on public validation, so I decided to let her parade herself. If she wanted to make a show, I would sit back and wait for the curtain to fall. The next day, the first round of interviews began. Melanie strutted in like she owned the room, casually name-dropping VP Daniels twice in the first 10 minutes. The panel seemed politely impressed, but when they started asking technical questions, questions about debugging, optimization, and architecture, her confidence wavered. She stumbled on basic problems, hesitated, and tried to improvise explanations that didn't make sense. Then it was my turn. I took a deep breath and walked in calmly, as if the room were just another part of my day. I listened to the questions, nodded, and answered with precise examples from the projects I had actually built. I walked them through complex problems, showed metrics, and even pulled up a small demo to illustrate my solutions. With every example, I could feel the shift, the panel's attention sharpened, their confidence in me growing. Melanie's name came up during my explanation, and I handled it professionally. Some of the modules you're asking about were initially designed by me, and I collaborated with Melanie on minor optimizations, but the core architecture was my work. No accusation, no drama, just the facts. Afterward, I walked out of the room feeling quietly victorious. Melanie tried to corner one of the panelists later, sprinkling charm like glitter. "I just want to make sure my contributions are recognized," she said, batting her eyes in a calculated way. But the panel was polite but firm. They acknowledged her efforts without giving any indication that she was ahead. That night, I reviewed my notes. Melanie had underestimated one crucial thing. Preparation and skill would always outweigh superficial charm, and I had those in spades. I also knew the real game wasn't over. The final interview was coming, and that's where I planned to make my move. Quietly, methodically, with the kind of precision that Melanie could never fake. By the time I left the office, I felt a strange combination of relief and anticipation. The fire she had lit with her arrogance was burning, but this time I controlled it. And soon enough, she would feel the heat too, but in a way that wouldn't be humiliating for me, only for her. The day of the final interview arrived, and I could feel the tension in the office like static electricity. Melanie, of course, arrived early, radiating that infuriating mix of confidence and self-satisfaction. She spent 20 minutes in the waiting area rehearsing lines, flicking through her notes, and casually reminding anyone within earshot of her connections. When it was her turn in the interview room, she launched into her usual performance. "I've always believed that leadership is about influence," she began, glancing at the panel, "and I've had the privilege of cultivating relationships that really allow me to drive results." One of the panelists raised an eyebrow. "We're interested in your technical expertise, Melanie. Can you walk us through the architecture of your last project?" Her smile faltered slightly. She started talking, but it was vague, general, and almost entirely theoretical. She name-dropped tools and processes, but the sentences didn't add up. Every panelist's eyes shifted slightly toward the door, where my interview would eventually begin. When it was my turn, I entered calmly. I greeted the panel, took a deep breath, and dove right into the technical questions. Every answer was precise, detailed, and backed with real-world examples. When asked about debugging and optimization, I pulled up charts, performance metrics, and even a live demo I had prepared. Halfway through, one of the panelists asked, "Can you explain your contribution compared to the rest of the team?" I paused for a moment, choosing my words carefully. Most of the architecture and core modules were designed and implemented by me. Melanie assisted with minor optimizations, which were helpful, but the backbone of the project was my work. I didn't flinch. No accusation, no emotional outburst, just facts. I saw subtle nods of approval around the table, the kind that don't go unnoticed. Melanie, sitting outside the room for her second interview, had no idea that her overconfidence and reliance on connections had just become her biggest liability. By the end of the session, I had clearly established both technical authority and leadership potential. The panel's questions began to feel like an easy rhythm, each answer reinforcing that I was the right candidate. Melanie's charm and assumed influence had crumbled under the weight of actual skill. Later, the VP called us both into the final meeting. I was offered the promotion on the spot. Melanie's face was a mix of disbelief and forced composure. She opened her mouth, trying to claim some excuse about her contributions or connections, but the VP interrupted gently. "Melanie, your enthusiasm is appreciated, but technical expertise and leadership are what matter most in this role. We hope you continue contributing and growing in your current position." I nodded politely, hiding the grin that threatened to creep across my face. I didn't need to gloat. The outcome spoke for itself. Melanie had relied on charm, connections, and ego, while I had quietly built a case based on undeniable results. As I left the office that day, I realized something. Letting someone play their game only to win on your own terms is infinitely more satisfying than confrontation. Melanie had underestimated patience, preparation, and the quiet power of competence, and that had been her downfall. The week following the promotion announcement felt strangely surreal. People stopped treating Melanie the same way. The subtle aura of invincibility she carried around the office had vanished almost overnight. I noticed it first in small interactions, a hesitant tone, a lack of smug asides, and her usual confidence replaced with awkward, forced smiles. She still tried to maintain her composure, dropping comments like, "Well, I guess it's just one of those things." But the edge was gone. Her every attempt to assert dominance now seemed hollow because the facts had spoken louder than charm. The office, which had once been subtly charmed by her swagger, now looked to me with renewed respect, not because I had shown off or gossiped, but because results, calm authority, and preparation had won the day. Melanie approached me one afternoon holding a folder like it contained some grand revelation. She tried, in the most delicate way she could manage, to offer advice or insight. "Look, John, I know you're doing well now, but maybe I can help you navigate some of the politics around here." I smiled politely, a calm but unmistakable firmness in my tone. "Thanks, Melanie, but I think I've got it covered. I've learned that consistency and hard work go a long way here." She nodded, looking slightly deflated. I could almost see her processing the reality that she could no longer lean on connections or confidence alone. The irony wasn't lost on me. Her own tactics had set her up for failure. Meanwhile, I settled into the new role, diving into the projects I had been preparing for years. For the first time, I was able to implement ideas I had been quietly refining, make decisions without interference, and lead the team in a way that reflected my own approach, thoughtful, precise, and grounded in actual knowledge. I even found a sense of satisfaction in mentoring others, including Melanie, who seemed more willing to learn now that the arrogance had been stripped away. The moral of the whole ordeal hit me quietly but powerfully. Patience, preparation, and competence are far more potent than overconfidence, manipulation, or assumed influence. By letting Melanie overplay her hand, I didn't just win a promotion. I demonstrated that skill, integrity, and calm persistence always carry weight, even in a world that often seems to reward loud personalities first. And the best part? I didn't have to humiliate anyone. The truth revealed itself naturally, like gravity. Melanie learned, whether she wanted to admit it or not, that you can't fake mastery. And I had the satisfaction of watching it all unfold without sacrificing my own professionalism or peace of mind. Walking into the office each morning now, I felt a quiet pride. Not a pride that needed to be flaunted, but the deep, satisfying pride of someone who played the long game and won, not by outshouting the world, but by quietly proving that results always speak louder than ego. Months later, the office settled into a new rhythm. Melanie became quieter, focused on actual work, and less reliant on charm. I embraced my promotion, leading projects with precision and mentoring the team, including her. The best part wasn't recognition, but seeing skill and integrity outshine arrogance and shortcuts. Melanie learned, whether she admitted or not, that influence without competence is fragile. I played the long game, let action speak, and quietly proved that results always matter more than ego.